5 years ago, when I quit my job due to burnout, one of the first things I started doing was hopping on Zoom calls with other developers to try to figure out what went wrong. And during that period, I asked over 200 developers in the last 3 years, what do they really need help with? As you know from my other videos, I've started doing career coaching in the afternoon for developers. And so today I want to talk to you about the top 6 things that I heard all developers are struggling with. The first thing I heard time and time again was from people who have already had a pretty long career. This is a person who's already had multiple jobs and they've kind of played the game for a while and they've started to wonder, okay, what's next? Where am I really headed? And this is a problem I had earlier in my career too. I would work a job for a while, life kind of happened, and the next thing I knew, I was frustrated with the job and I was looking for a new one, but I was already under the pressure of all the deliverables at that job and I didn't really know where to go next. And to be honest, the first job that I would often find, or maybe first couple jobs if I had some competing offers, I would take. And then a couple years later, I'd be just as frustrated again. And it was just sort of like a hamster wheel that I was constantly on and I didn't know how to get off. So since I started doing career coaching, this is one of the main things that I actually really like helping people with, which is me being just a different person than them. I'm able to give them some perspective. You know, I have people in my life that help me out. I've talked to you in other videos about some of my personal challenges over my life and how those kind of interfered with my job. But this is really just helping someone take a look at who they are, what they do and don't like about their career so far, some of the kind of traumatic experiences they might have had if they've had to work with bosses or just other coworkers that were kind of jerks to them, and help them try to figure out what kind of changes could they make? Where could they actually aim that might be a significant change for them and actually put them in a position where they like their career again? The second thing people come to me for help with a lot, and this is really common, is they already kind of know where they're going, but they're just having a really hard time landing a new job. And one of the biggest things I see people struggle with out there, and I struggled a lot with this too, is using LinkedIn well. A lot of people, I think, still look at LinkedIn as though it's just an online resume, and it's not. It's really a social profile for your career. And so I have a whole process I take people through now. It's actually pretty cool. I help them write a story about what happened that got them to the point that they're at now in their career that they want to do, what they want to do next. And then we redo their entire profile so that everything, the graphics, their experience, the recommendations they may have gotten, their education, everything is all talked about in the context of whatever it is that they want to do next. I don't know if you've experienced this, but the longer I worked in software development, the longer my resume and thus your LinkedIn profile gets. And there's kind of this paranoia. If I take something out that I did in the past, that might be, you know, the one technology that some employer out there wants to see, you know, to hire me. And since I got into career coaching and I've been trying to reach people online and help them with stuff like this, and I had to learn a lot about digital marketing, I've really learned that this is not the case. Actually, the more focused you can be and the easier you can make it for somebody to look at your profile and immediately get who you are and what you do, the better chance you have that they're going to actually be interested enough to start a conversation with you, or you start it yourself. And that's the biggest thing that I help people with as part of this too, is once I help them to redo their LinkedIn profile, then I help them with networking. When I was younger, before LinkedIn, we would often have to meet up with people in person, and that was the only way that you could network. And today, it's actually a lot easier with LinkedIn. But the problem is, I see a lot of people that they think networking is finding somebody working at a company you're interested in and sending them a DM and just saying, hey, I'm really interested in working there. What's it like? And the problem with that is, if you think about it, that person's really busy. They may even be frustrated with their job, and you're asking them to explain a whole bunch of stuff that they're already probably struggling with. So I help people with, you know, how do you open that conversation? How do you actually give something to that person rather than take something? And basically build a pipeline, so to speak, much like a salesperson, of potential employers that are interested in you. I think this is something that we need to be doing as developers all the time. Instead of just like, oh, I'm really frustrated with my job, and now I'll go out there and try to network and find people. I think it's just critical today with how much noise there is and how much pressure there is in the industry. We have have to be constantly networking. Now, does that mean we need to go out on LinkedIn like 5 hours a week and just be posting stuff and responding to things and being super active? No, I see tons of people do that. I think that can be a complete waste of time, but it is one of the best places to reach people. And so when it comes to getting a new job, the reality is it's a different game out there than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. And I work with a lot of developers, even who have only been in the industry for, let's say, 5 to 7 years, that honestly have no idea how to network. And this is one of the biggest things I love to help them with. Believe it or not, I have had people come to me who have had their company pay me to help them recover from burnout. Burnout is a huge problem in our industry. I just opened the video telling you that I suffered from it, but I knew there was an issue with burnout, and I'd seen a lot of developers struggle, and I'd struggled myself, but it wasn't until I started getting on Zoom calls with people from other countries that I had never been to and hearing them say right back to me over Zoom a lot of the same situations that I'd went through. And so one of the things I really love helping people with, and this is something that is probably my biggest passion, it's really what I started this whole YouTube channel about, was to help people do healthy software development, is I use a lot of the same things I learned when I went through my addiction recovery. I talked about how I was addicted to marijuana for a long time, and I went through a recovery program. And I used some of the same techniques I used there, along with some other things that I've kind of learned myself to really help people recover from burnout. And honestly, a lot of it is not just like, eating better and exercising. A lot of people come to me and they already have a therapist. They've already figured out some ways to recover. It's more, how do we set healthy boundaries for ourselves? What do we say to our employer? What do we say to our family? What kind of habits do we put in place at home after work to prevent ourselves from working when we don't really need to? The fourth thing developers tell me they need help with all the time is, hey man, I've got a good job. It pays well. The hours are fine. I like the technology, but there's just one or two people on my project that I can't get along with. Sometimes they're trying to repair a relationship with a person that they've already damaged. Maybe they worked a whole bunch of overtime. Now that person expects that's how they're going to work, and they need to reset expectations with that person. Sometimes it's a person who just constantly pushes them to go above and beyond what's reasonable for the job, and they need help with, what do I say to this person? How do I push back? How do I actually appeal to what they care about in a way that they're not pushing me into this situation where I'm in danger of burnout or just really frustrated and wanting to quit? And the flip side of that is, if you're earning good respect with people and you're earning trust with people, you should be getting recognized for it. I also love helping people get ready for promotions. And sometimes I have people come to me who just got a promotion and they're just looking for help with, how do I do this new job? I had one guy come to me, this was about 2 years ago now, and he was promoted to an enterprise architect. He'd never done the job before. I'd done some of that in some roles. I'd mostly done application architecture and platform architecture, but a lot of what I helped him with was really just, how do you talk to other people now that you're in a position of authority? He was more of an individual contributor before, and he was a lot of times asking permission from people to do things. And I was like, dude, you're the enterprise architect. You don't need to ask permission for a lot of that stuff. And it's up to other people to debate you and basically prove that they somehow technically know more than you. If they've already promoted you and said, the whole reason we want you to be an enterprise architect is because you've already done a great job and you've proved yourself. The fifth thing that developers often tell me they really want help with and they're really excited about is working for themselves. They've played the game, they've worked for many employers, they've moved up the ladder, and they're at a point when they want more control over who they work for and the terms of their work. I've talked about all over the channel how one of the really cool things about working for yourself is you get to choose your own clients, you get to create your own statement of work, your own master services agreement, your own rules basically about, if I'm going to do business with someone, what will I do and what won't I do? Now, you still have to sell yourself, but ultimately becoming an IT consultant or a freelance consultant of some sort, if you're experienced, I ended up making a lot more money when I quit my job 5 years ago and started doing consulting. I think you've probably seen on my website and in some of my other videos, I work part-time as a consultant now. And when I do work, I make the same amount of money as I used to full-time. I basically make twice as much. Now, I don't work all 12 months every day out of the year like I used to as an employee, and I have to go out and find clients. But if that's something that you're interested in, it can be a really cool step in your career because it also gives you the ability to kind of have multiple options. If you're talking to multiple clients, let's say you're on a project and you're really not happy with it, instead of just going out and having to find a new job, you can start telling that client, hey, I've got another client that needs help. We're going to need to wrap this up soon here. And a lot of times, if they really need you, that's the kind of leverage that you sometimes need if they're not treating you well or they're not supporting your ideas to really motivate them to let you actually do a good job and do what you want to do. But working for yourself involves a lot of things that I just kind of figured out along the way. Some of this stuff, when I was a consultant, I learned, like writing statements of work and things like that. But I had to create some legal documents for my clients to sign. I had to have terms of service. I had to have ways that I could invoice them, doing franchise tax. A lot of this little stuff that, frankly, when I thought about it before I got into it, I was like, I would never want to do that. That seems like so much paperwork. But I'll tell you, the difference between, okay, I've got some administrative tasks I've got to do, but I have my own business now and I have control over my clients and I actually get to get involved in projects where I like the technology without having to, go through a rigorous interview process. I love it. I would never go back to being an employee for a company again unless I really have to at this point. And of the over 200 developers I've talked to online over the last 3 years, the final thing that they've told me they want help with is switching into using a new technology or maybe changing their role. With all the algorithm crunching sites out there, and I see a lot of people posting on LinkedIn these crazy certifications and tests and boot camps that people will go through just to switch from one, let's say, full stack web development framework to another. I think it's incredibly wasteful the way that a lot of people approach moving into a different area of their career. And I love to help people figure out it's really more about building relationships, building confidence, and having a body of work to show to people. I'm sure if you've got an app out there, or if it's like data science or something like that, an example of a machine learning model that you can show to somebody that works off a public data set or something like that. That's definitely a great way that you can get into a new position if you haven't yet worked a job where you have used that technology, versus trying to just hit the books and burn yourself out thinking you're going to somehow get into the interview and be perfect and beat all these other people. I love to just help people look at, okay, you probably have a family, you probably have dependents, maybe other people in your life who are affected by your career decisions. If you try to spend 20 hours a week just cranking like that, trying to learn something new, not only is it going to be frustrating, but it's probably going to piss off everybody around you. One of the worst things that I've done in my career is set unrealistic expectations for myself. Sometimes I would get to a place where I'd see a new programming language I wanted to work with, or like when I got into continuous delivery 9 years ago, and I want to rush and get myself into a position where I can use it as quickly as possible, and sometimes be tempted to make a rash decision like just quit my job or kind of check out at work, when really having a plan for it and at least knowing, okay, maybe it's going to be 6 months to a year till I'm really ready to do this because of my life situation, but it's actually achievable. So that's it. These are the 6 things that people come to me over and over again for help with through career coaching. When I first started doing this about 3.5 years ago and actually charging for it, I used to just offer coaching, and it was really through the conversation with the person when I'd give them a free consultation. We try to figure out, is this something I can help you with? And I really helped each person completely differently, and I didn't have a whole lot of structure to it, but I still was able to get them results. And over the last 3 years, I've really realized that it's kind of better when I can to come up with outcome-based coaching where, when I talk to them now, I try to figure out, okay, is one of these 6 things the main thing that you're struggling with or that you'd like? Is this one of your biggest desires? And then really the coaching engagement is around helping them achieve that one thing. Now, I still do offer custom coaching for people that meet me and they talk to me and I explain all this to them and they're just like, no, it's still something a little bit different than what you're describing that I need help with, if it's something I can help them with. But if you know somebody who's struggling with one of these 6 things, tell them about my services. I'd love to help them. And if there's something different than what's on this list, leave me a comment. I'd love to hear other things that you might be struggling with if they don't fit into this. And if they do fit into this, share your story a little bit about how you feel about what it's going to take for you to achieve one of these things. If I would have known how many people are struggling with these 6 things earlier, I probably would have done this a long time ago because I actually really love this kind of work. It's pretty weird. I've been a developer, the typical heads down writing code or giving presentations, doing architecture for many years. And now I'm just kind of getting on Zoom calls with people in the afternoon and really talking through their issues. But I really think I can make a bigger impact on the industry by helping other people. Instead of just being individual contributors, move into either being consultants or leaders or managers, because, a lot of us complain out there that we don't feel like people understand, how to do agile or how software development works. But then we don't really want to step up and do anything about being the person who can set up the company or at least the project in a way that it's successful. And if we're all going to be healthy software developers out there, honestly, it's up to us. So until next time, thanks for watching.